And that's how we wrap up your sports bulletin at this hour. Now back to our main story. ZANU-PF Youth Wing has called for the expulsion of Zimbabwean First Lady Grace Mugabe. For more on this story, we are now joined on the line by our foreign editor, Sophie Mukwena, who is in Harare. Sophie, good morning and welcome to AM News.
Good morning, Khoto Marumo.
Khoto Mukwena, can you please share in detail with us on the reports that ZANU-PF Youth Wing wants Grace Mugabe out?
Yes, indeed, the ZANU-PF Youth Wing had a meeting this morning before the Central Committee meeting of the mother body, ZANU-PF. Now they took a decision to expel some of their members. You'd recall that some of their members were in support of President Robert Mugabe, and particularly Grace Mugabe, and the group called the G40. And they have expelled those who were in support of the G40. They went further to say that they want Grace Mugabe expelled today. They want the Central Committee meeting, which is currently underway at the headquarters of ZANU-PF, to take a resolution to expel Grace Mugabe, but also to tell President Robert Mugabe to step down. So these are the developments. You can see that this is a scene setter for what's likely to happen at the Central Committee meeting today. We expect that what the ZANU-PF with Youth Wing has said after the meeting, it's likely to be the position that's likely to be taken by the Central Committee meeting this afternoon. And of course, all eyes on President Robert Mugabe as he meets the commander or the command of the defense force here in Zimbabwe.
Memukwena, just during the week, the ZANU-PF Youth Wing president came out in support of President Mugabe, saying that there was no way they will allow a coup and that to happen in Zimbabwe. What has changed in the past couple of hours?
Well, clearly the balance of forces have changed. You'd recall that Friday, 10 provinces took a decision that President Mugabe should step down. And I think, indeed, the balance of forces within the ZANU-PF have changed. And then secondly, you are aware that the very same leader of the youth organization had to apologize publicly on television after that statement. And therefore, clearly, balance of forces have changed. And he is among those who have been expelled by the youth wing.
And we also understand that Mnangagwa will be reinstated in the ZANU-PF meeting today. What more do you know on this?
Well, of course, today Mnangagwa is expected to be at the Central Committee meeting because you recall that he was expelled as the vice president of the country, not of ZANU-PF. Therefore, in President Mugabe's absentia, he is expected to chair the Central Committee meeting unless they ask him to recuse himself while they are dealing with this issue and to ensure that the process is fair. And of course, perhaps the Central Committee will then move that he take over from President Robert Mugabe. And that will pave way for him to become, obvious, the president of the interim government, if all goes well, according to the wish and the aspiration of the some ZANU-PF members and, of course, the army.
And let's also now talk about what we saw in the streets of Harare yesterday. Lots of jubilation from Zimbabweans talking about President Robert Mugabe having to leave office and the likes. What would you, how would you describe the mood this morning in Zimbabwe?
Well, yesterday, of course, unprecedented scenes of pictures we saw here in Zimbabwe, thousands taking to the streets in Harare, in Bulawayo, people saying President Mugabe must step down. This morning it's quiet. People are going to different places. It's quiet. We are at the ZANU-PF headquarters. Members of Central Committee started arriving as early as 8:30, and currently they are in a meeting. But in the streets this morning, it's quiet. Last night we went out, we saw people continuing to demonstrate or to celebrate. I don't know how to describe that, but continuously saying President Robert Mugabe must step down. You know, what I picked up, it's not personal, but rather people saying, based on the challenges the country is facing, they need a leadership that can take Zimbabwe forward or correct the wrongs or perhaps assist Zimbabwe to be a better country. You know that a lot can be done in terms of economic activities in this country. But currently, some few years back, the country experienced all the challenges, and they want the situation to change, particularly the young people. The young people saying they want a better leader with better leadership skills, a person who will unite the country, but who will also ensure that he paves way or he brings together men and women who can rebuild the economy of this country, a priority, particularly for the Defense Force, as they indicated in their message on Monday.
So also, Memokwena, just expand on the idea or on the whole issue of a coup d'etat in Zimbabwe. Many are saying there's no such in Zimbabwe, there's no coup d'etat in Zimbabwe, but Zimbabweans seems to be engaging themselves in trying to sort out the problems that Zimbabwe is faced with.
It depends who you speak to. If you speak to President Mugabe's faction, they describe this as a clear coup. When you speak to those who are in support of the army and Emmerson Mnangagwa in particular, they say it's people expressing their views and thanks to the army because the intervention will lead to a situation where you have a better Zimbabwe.
Let's also now talk about the Defense Force visibility in the streets of Harare specifically. How would you describe that this morning?
This morning, we haven't seen any of Defense Force members. Yesterday, last night, indeed, we saw lots of army trucks. But, you know, the army ensuring that they behave in a very respectful manner. They are quiet. They don't intimidate. They don't harass people. Young people even taking pictures, you know, with them. And they were very... very professional in terms of how they have conducted themselves. Even the media, you know, they are not harassing the media. Normally in some countries, when you have a situation like this where there's some vacuum in terms of leadership, you see the army or the security establishment getting very agitated and sometimes very brutal and sometimes rude. But they have been very quiet and just, you know, conducting their business in a very peaceful and calm manner.
All right, Memokwena, thanks a lot. Of course, that's the SABC foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena, giving us an update on what's happening in Zimbabwe.